You guys, I'm really excited. Today, I have a very special guest, the one and only Nick Demas. He is here. We met through our good friend Tiffany Lee Bymaster, and for the longest time, she was saying, you guys have to connect, you have to meet, you have to be friends, and we got to meet in person not too long ago, and it was everything and more. You are just so amazing and wonderful. So I'm really grateful that you're here to just hang out and have an amazing conversation today.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I have been stalking you in the best possible way since Tiffany said you have to know each other. You have to get to know this human being.
Yeah.
And she was right.
I love it. So both of us kind of have a little bit of that theater background, and we're going to chat a little bit about that today, and really, I think how that has informed our entrepreneur journeys. So I'm excited to see where this conversation goes.
Me too.
So I would love for you to just share a little bit of because you've had an amazing career, like in so many different facets.
I have been incredibly fortunate.
Yeah.
I have so much gratitude for my theatrical career. It started super early. I'll just dive in here and give you a full-on history. It started 30 years ago, and that makes me sound super old, but I was young when I started. My first professional job, I was 16 years old. So I started very, very early. By 18 years old, I had auditioned for a national tour of a musical, landed the gig, and went on the road for a year. And after that, moved to New York and basically never looked back. And so at first I was an actor. So I'd like to say that I have my entire life, I've been a creative entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
That while my journey as an online entrepreneur is fairly new, my journey as a creative entrepreneur is very, very long and old and windy and incredible.
Yeah.
So I was an actor first. Like so many of us, I think that particularly in the theater, we believe that that's where we should be, or our calling, or what we're supposed to do, because that's where all the guts and glory are, right? But the reality is that it's not actually for everyone.
Yep. Similar to entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Very similar. It is the same road. It really is.
It really is.
And it so prepares you for entrepreneurship.
Oh
like
my God,
in the sense of what we do now. Like it so prepared me. But but along the pathway, I kept making choices. At 26 years old, I was doing the Radio City Christmas Spectacular with the Rockettes, dancing my little tushy off. And I had this moment. I was in a bear head. And I'm not joking. I had a bear head costume on. I was doing the Nutcracker Ballet. And I had this moment where I had tears in my eyes on stage. And I realized that this was not the life that I wanted to live.
Wow.
And I was seemingly successful, right? Like I had been working nonstop as an actor, dancer, singer, primarily dance, but I wasn't happy. And I think it was one of those turning points at 26 years old. I was like, this is not gonna be it. And I remember very clearly taking my bear head off.
Everyone see the image.
Yeah, and looking at myself in the dressing room mirror and saying, this is not your life.
Wow.
And starting today, you're going to change it. And this was old school. I had to get up and pick up the phone and call people. This is, pre just texting someone, pre just, sending an email. I had to pick up the phone and call. And I called every theater I'd ever worked at. And I said, I want to direct and choreograph.
Wow.
And a theater said to me, this was 2 days later, a theater said, we just lost our choreographer for Godspell. Hey, will you come to Florida in February, a month and a half later, and choreograph the show for us? And I said, absolutely. friggin' way. And within a year, I had completely transitioned from being a dancer to a full-time director choreographer. It just happened. Like, I think that whole thing of like when you set the intention
Mm-hmm.
and you get super clear, that's when magic happens, when you're in alignment.
Yes. And you just took that immediate inspired action. And I think that's so important because so many people in the space, like, oh, I want to pivot or I want to lean into this. And then they go, oh, well, that's my identity, or what will people think? And it sounds like for you, I mean, was there any of that like fear or that story coming in, or just like, nope, this is it?
Nope. I made the decision.
Yeah.
I trusted that instinct. And I think that's what is really key, is learning who you are,
Mm-hmm.
learning what that instinct is, learning what that spark of intuition and imagination and creativity is, and then trusting. It's the trust factor followed by taking massive action. I did take the massive action. I didn't take little action. I went out and made it happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? It's hustle meets alignment,
Yes.
right? Like, you can say I'm in alignment, but if you don't actually do anything about that, then where's the aligning, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was really a big step for me. Then 3 years later, I am directing a show at a theater called Lyric Theater of Oklahoma in Oklahoma City. And while I'm there, they fire the artistic director. So I'm now 28, turning 29 years old. And the board president turns to me, because my shows had been successful there the previous couple of years, turns to me and says, will you take over the theater for a year while we do a national search? I
Whoa.
don't know how to run a theater. I don't know anything about business. I mean, other than running my own like personal, acting business, but that's and choreography directing career, which is very different than running a company. And I
Yeah.
said, absolutely.
Yes.
Of
Ah, I
course
love
I'm
it.
going to take, of course I'm going to take this opportunity, right? And that's when I really learned business, because I had a company that was had just come out of near bankruptcy. There were some major internal issues, but I knew what they were. And I spent that year getting to know what the company was and learning how to run it, basically. But at the end of that year, they came to me and said, this is the most successful season we've had in a decade.
Whoa.
Will you stay? We don't want to do a national search. You are the search. We found you. And so I did, and I stayed for an additional 8 years. And
Wow.
in the course of the time there, we tripled the annual budget of the company. We moved to 2 new theaters. I raised multi-million dollars for a capital campaign for a building. My name's on a building, for gosh sakes, man.
Made it.
We opened a children's academy. Like, we grew
Wow.
the theater exponentially. We tripled the size of the theater in my 8 years there. But then I knew it was time for me to move on.
Wow.
So taking risk is something that I always say to people is so vital as an entrepreneur, is being willing to risk, being willing to make a change if something isn't working. That pivot, like we were talking about, the pivot, you've got to be willing to go. And sometimes it's, even when things are good, that's the hard thing. Like when sometimes things
Yes.
are
People
good.
wait for the pain, for the rock bottom to make the change. But if you can learn how to make change from things that are good to get to great, that's when you
Yeah,
can live an amazing life.
that is what I knew. I knew that my time there, that I had done what I wanted to do.
Mm.
And so I had gone to New York. I took a month off to go to teacher training for yoga teacher training. So this was now, this is 13 years ago now.
Wow.
And I, I'm in training, and it's an intense training, right? 200 hours in a month, right? So every day I'm in this training, I'm doing meditation and breath work, and really learning more about who I am as a human being. That was really what I was there for, not to necessarily teach yoga. And I'm there, and I have this realization. That's when I realized I had to quit my job.
Hmm.
Was in that process. That process said to me, you don't need to take a month off. You need to quit. And so I did. Like, was that the easiest thing I've ever done in my life? It was leaving security and the steady paycheck and all these things that you crave when you're in the theater, right? But I knew it was time. Like I said, it was time. And
what was it that you were feeling that, or what were the downloads that were coming that made you certain in walking away from certainty?
yeah, that I needed to stretch myself as an artist, as an entrepreneur, as a human being.
Mm,
And I knew that if I stayed in that job, it was now or never, because I
yep.
was nearing the 10-year mark. And it was like, well, okay, we can either stay here and this can be the rest of my life, and I can play it small and safe, or I can jump, take a leap, and see what happens.
Yeah.
And 2 years later, I began a production company my last year. While I was still at the theater at Lyric, I started my own production company with a partner. And during that year, I was crazy. I was flying. I was producing a show on the West End. So
Oh
I
my
was
God.
flying from London to New York to Oklahoma City, running up to the theater in the final year, and this new production company. And it was
Wow.
really, truly an insane year of my life. And then moving back to New York full time, and it was an insane, incredible year. And then 1 year later, uh, I was involved with a show that I was a primary producer on called Memphis, that won the Tony Award. So a year later, so 2 years after quitting my job, I was greatly rewarded with the Tony Award for a show that I produced, which is phenomenal, right?
Which
Like
is unbelievable. Yeah.
that's like a dream, but it wouldn't have happened without the risk, right?
And without, even before the risk, listening to the nudge and really
Listen,
learning how to listen to your intuition.
yes, yes, yes. I'm giving you a
Higher five.
virtual high five.
Yes.
Yeah, because you've got to listen. And that's a real testament to the power of getting quiet,
Yes.
of taking meditative practices, and whether it's meditation or prayer or whatever it is for you, whatever that, this is called the Inner Boss podcast, right? Whatever that inner boss, however you access that inner boss, that is vital to the knowing of the self, which is then, propels you into these risky ventures that turn into gold.
Yeah.
Um, and the interesting thing about that moment, however, the Tony moment was, huh, okay, I'm going to be 40. Now what?
Wow. Yeah.
I got the brass ring. Now what do
Mhm.
I do?
Oh my
And then I
God.
was like, oh, I can repeat it. Huh.
Mhm.
I can be in that elusive search for the next Tony Award or the next whatever. But that didn't feel right.
Mm.
And I spent a little bit of time, a couple of years, honestly, just trying to figure out what was next. And I started teaching creativity retreats, and I started teaching more meditation and yoga, and really took some focus in that direction. And um, just spent some time in exploration with others, as an artist and as a business person. And it was such a valuable time to just, because thankfully, I had, when a show is a hit and it was running for 5 years, you've got these checks coming in, right? So
Mhm.
I was able to explore, which was such a gift, because it expanded me in such huge ways. And I directed a film, and then I started these documentaries, and so it has been such an expansive thing. And then throughout it, what I realized was that I wanted so desperately to bring together my worlds. I
Mm.
wanted to bring together this creative, artistic life and business with my meditation, breath work, and teaching of creativity business, and I wanted to merge them. And that has been really the last couple of years. And it has been the most fulfilling work of my entire life.
Wow. Okay, so what for you made this feel more in alignment than the things that you've done in the past?
Because it was taking all the parts of me and
Mm,
bringing them together.
I love that.
Yeah.
I always talk about like build your expertise sandwich of like these are all the things that you love to do and you'll just make the perfect whatever it is hamburger sandwich. And I just see so many people compartmentalizing the things that they've experienced, the careers that they've had. And when you can kind of bring it all together, that's really where you find like the sweet spot of
Yeah.
all of it.
I love your sandwich analogy, although I'm vegan, so the hamburger thing doesn't work for me.
Well, it's so
But
funny. I say sandwich, but in my head, I think about a burger, but I'm like, no, it makes sense as a sandwich.
it
And it can be
does.
a little bit of hummus, a little bit of
Yeah, there we
avocado.
go. Hummus, avocado, and a wrap, gluten-free,
Yes.
whatever
Yeah.
version of it is yours, right? And that's exactly the point.
Yeah.
It's whatever version of it is yours, because
Mm-hmm.
what you bring uniquely you from all parts of your life is what is going to attract people to you,
Yeah.
right? Because that's your expertise. It's not just one thing. It's bringing them all together in the perfect sandwich. And some people are going to want the hamburger, and so
Mm-hmm.
they're going to be attracted to you because you serve hamburgers. And some people are going to be attracted to the hummus with on a
Gluten-free wrap.
gluten-free wrap.
Yes. Oh my gosh, so good. And it's funny too that you bring this up. I remember listening to Mike Dooley. A lot of people don't know him by name, but they receive notes from the universe in their
Yeah,
inbox. So
yeah.
he's the writer behind that. And I remember years ago listening to his audio programs and him sharing how he had gone through all of these different things that were on the outside failures or things that didn't totally work or didn't totally land. He had created a t-shirt company with his mom and mom and brother, and it was called Totally Unique T-shirts, which is tut.com, which is their website. He had gone and done all this travel. He had done all this manifestation stuff. He was doing Toastmasters and had done, written out 12 different speeches and had nothing, like no monetary return, all of these different things. Got credit card enabled for e-cards. Then that kind of industry was no longer a thing. So all these different things. And I remember listening to his story and him talking about how all of those came together later on, and he ended up selling out this audio program. And he's like, and I had all of these things were set up and ready to go, and all of those things had been happening for me, even though they seemed like failures on paper. It was all the steps that needed to happen in order for me to be ready to deliver this thing to the world.
100 and
Yeah.
not 100%,
Yeah.
110%.
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing. We just discussed the beauty of my career,
Yeah.
right? Oh, it's been this success and that success and
Yeah.
that success. But let me tell you, along the pathway, I have failed. And I use that term
Air quotes.
very, very loosely because I really don't believe in failure. I believe that situations teach you.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that it becomes this opportunity for inner work and outer work. But I don't really think of him as a failure because, again, like him, I would not have been able to move myself forward to the successes if I didn't have the failures. Because guess what? There were shows that failed.
Mm-hmm.
There were oh, I had an app that was supposed to be released. Well, guess what? The app never released.
Yeah.
Yeah, I I have a non-for-profit, a little non-for-profit called One Company. We did a very large show that bombed, and when I mean it bombed, I mean like it was an embarrassing abomination. And people
What
don't.
what what bombed about it? Like no ticket sales, or it just didn't come together?
Oh,
All of the
everything,
above?
all of the above, everything from we had to fire the choreographer to then I had to jump in as the choreographer, but I was the producer, and then I mean, and then we couldn't sell any tickets. When I say we couldn't sell tickets, I couldn't give a ticket away to it. I mean, I literally could not give tickets away to this. It was not the right show at the right time. I think it was a little ahead of itself and would probably actually play better now. But it was just the wrong show at the wrong time. And, it was a failure on and I was devastated because it was this brand new company. It was a new venture. It was a new way of working for me. But ultimately, it was like, oh, you don't need to run another non-for-profit full time.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need to do shows in this way anymore. And the world isn't ready for this. Maybe it will be in 10 years. Bring it back then. So, that's a silly example but it is the reality of business that not everything's going to hit.
Mm-hmm.
And now I struggle, and I want to hear your take on this with this idea of resistance and persistence. Like, when do you let go of an idea or let go of a product or let go of something, and when are you just not giving it enough energy? Right?
Oh, yeah, that is a really good question. Oh, I love this. And there's so much juiciness to unpack, and I don't know if there's one answer for this, but I think it comes back to individual intuition. Like, if you've refined your intuition, you know. You don't
Mm,
have to even look at the numbers. You just
mm,
know if it's time to move on. Like, I'm all about the numbers. I'm all here for like the nitty-gritty business side of things. But I mean, I had a business partner for a while, and we had a very successful coaching business, and literally closed our business in the middle of a launch and refunded over $200,000.
wow.
Most people are like, "Are you fucking nuts? Who would do that?" It was definitely not in alignment, and we should have made that decision sooner. But it was the most challenging experience, not only like breaking down a business that was incredibly profitable, but also dealing with 65 people who had just invested in this program and telling them, sorry that you were really excited about this, but we're actually canceling this round. And there was a lot of frustration, a lot of anger. And so it was one of the most challenging moments of my business, but the greatest lessons and the greatest moments of growth. When you're put in the pressure cooker, you come out the other side a whole lot stronger.
Oh, so good. So true.
And I wouldn't wish that on anyone, but I also, if it would give someone the same level of clarity that I feel I now have in my business with my values, the things that I have boundaries around, the things that I'm no longer available for, like I couldn't have asked. Like, the blessings from that were so far beyond, even though it was absolute shit in the moment.
Oh, I
Yeah.
so can relate to this because my
Yeah.
production company has dissolved, and I
Mm-hmm.
had a partner, and it was time for the partnership to end. And we can't fully dissolve, actually, because we produced another show on Broadway that's also a hit called Come From Away as co-producers. I wasn't a leading producer on it, but it's a huge hit, and it's has 5 companies worldwide, but our partnership needed to end.
Mm-hmm.
And it was messy
Yeah.
because we are also friends,
Which
right?
makes it even messier.
Which
Yep.
makes it even messier. But I knew, and this is good that you said this, because but I knew it was time.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that the boundaries thing, that is so right on. We had all these strange crossed boundaries that were things were no longer clean,
Mm-hmm.
and I just knew it was time. And
Yeah.
it's not the easiest thing to do
Mm-hmm.
because it's a breakup, right?
Yeah, well, it's like a divorce,
Yes.
because you're, financially intertwined, publicly intertwined, and it's
Yes.
like, especially for the work that we doing, people were like, "Mom and Dad are what's happening?"
Yes.
And it,
Mommy, daddy.
yeah, what are you guys breaking up? And it's like, I can laugh about it now, thank God. But yeah, it can be really messy. And I remember going through that and thinking, I'm the only person that's ever had a business partnership and in this way. And I had like a lot of like shame around it,
Yeah.
that somehow I didn't make it work. Meanwhile, the things that, and I don't, and this is not saying anything negative about this individual, because she probably felt similarly. Like, we just two very strong stubborn women who had very clear visions of what we wanted to create, and our visions just didn't align. Like, in a nutshell, like that's essentially what happened. They just started diverging, which is
Yeah.
totally fine. It was the greatest gift to be able to go and do our own things. But yeah, at the time it was challenging to be able to navigate that. And I really thought we were the only people that had ever gone through it. And as that happened, right? It's like we all like, I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I talk to so many entrepreneurs who say, oh, I'm the only person that's experiencing this. And the more people that I've talked to and shared that with over the years about it being like this great moment of growth, they're like, I had a partnership and it didn't work and this and that. And it's like, I remember people coming to us going, I'm going to create a partnership. I need a partnership. And I was like, guys, don't run into a business partnership with someone especially for the wrong reasons. Like for the reasons of, it'll be easier if I'm doing it with someone else, or, you have to really know the person and spend a good amount of time with them.
Yeah, I have to say, it is a marriage, and I have to say that I would be very open to a partnership in the future, but I know my boundaries. I know what I want. It was sort of like your starter marriage. Those people that have the first marriage and then they get married for real. I had my starter marriage.
Yes. Oh my God, that's hilarious.
And I still love my former partner too, and we're actually still friends, and we've been able to untangle because she's moving on to her way, and I'm creating what I've now created, right? So this amazing online space that we live, online and offline, but yeah.
So good. So what's been your biggest lesson in terms of boundaries? You said you were like, oh, boundaries, yes. So I feel like there's some nuggets in there, some golden nuggets.
There are. I'm a people pleaser.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, I will put others' feelings, others' ideas, others' desires and needs ahead of my own.
Mm.
And learning that is not okay. That it is okay for me to stand in my truth fully and completely and own it. Has been a marvelous. I sound like Liza Minnelli. It's marvelous, darling. It's a marvelous lesson. Marvelous, like a word from 1977.
Yes, I am living for this right now. Oh my God, yes. And that really speaks to compromising in a way that feels aligned.
Right.
Instead of just going, okay, because there's so many people pleasing things that we can get caught in.
I compromised a lot of my core values.
Mm.
And I will not do that again. That was the biggest lesson.
I'm so glad you just said this, because I think this is so important for those people listening, whether you're bringing on clients or especially team members or some kind of business partnership. You don't have the same core values, there's going to be problems. And this could be a romantic relationship or friendships as well. So I'm curious, like, what are your core values in business?
Yeah, so there are several that are super important to me. I think it's interesting because number one for me is spirituality. And it was something that was lacking in my last partner. And the word spiritual can seem very vague, but my version of it, right? Something that is authentic to me is, and at times I didn't feel like I was in authenticity in my old partnership. Something that gives back, that's in service to the world is primary for me. Something that is coming from a place of play. Mm-hmm. Play is super important. Anybody who knows me, I'm a goofball. And so that, even as deep as the well is as shallow as it can be as well. And I don't mean shallow I mean fun. That's what I mean. What else? Well, abundance. Yeah. And I think that really important that includes money.
Like wealth
Um,
and money and
yeah, that's part of the
yeah,
abundance,
yeah.
right? And not that I'm going to make my first decision based on that, because you heard that was like number 5 down there on the list
Mhm.
somewhere. I mean, but it is important. And I, at this point, it- those are non-starters,
Mhm.
right? Those aren't things that I compromise on anymore.
Yeah. I appreciate you sharing these. So for those of you guys listening right now, when you can get clear, we all have core values, but when you can clearly define exactly what they are and you come into contact with a decision that you're feeling uncertain about, you run it by your core values and ask like, does this actually align with this? Check or no check. And if it doesn't check the boxes, then the decision becomes abundantly clear.
Yeah, I'm gonna launch a new product in the new year in
Mm.
2020, and that was one of the. I had 2 ideas, right, and I sat with these 2 ideas, and they're both great ideas, and they both could potentially, make a lot of money. Number 5, right, abundance, but I went through the other 4 first to make the decision, and it became very clear which one it needed to be after that.
So good. Yeah, I just had a friend where one of her core values and really her focus and intention for the year was freedom. It's like create space to work on this other big project. And then was asking, should I create a membership? And her idea for the membership was to be basically in constant content creation mode. And
Mm,
it was like, well, those are in direct conflict. And she
mm.
wasn't able to see that because she loved the idea and was going, oh, but it's low hanging fruit. This could be amazing. Like, this is a great opportunity.
Well, because it's also very popular right now
Yeah,
too,
it's
right? Like
shiny
sometimes
object. Yeah.
shiny object memberships. Everyone needs a membership. Do you really
Yep.
need a membership, or
Yeah.
do you really need a
Mhm.
membership, right? Now, for me, I love my membership
Yeah.
because I'm a content creator. I've told
Mhm.
stories my entire life. This is what I love to do, is create content,
Mhm.
right?
Give me a stage.
Give me a stage. I'll write you a show. So content
Yeah.
creation is amazing. It's playful. It's of
Mhm.
service. It's you go down those core values, and it's like brilliant.
Mhm. Oh,
But freedom isn't necessarily one of them, because I've been free my whole life.
hey.
Hey.
Well, the way that you show up, it's filling your value of freedom, and everybody's got a different
Correct.
rule for their different values of what needs to happen in order for them to fulfill upon that thing.
Right. And in the same way that I said what spirituality means to me, what
Yeah.
freedom looks like to me may be different than what it looks like to you as well.
Mhm. So
So
good. So good. I love this. Okay, so now the work that you are doing within your membership, this is, evolved, but you're still bringing in and bringing with you all of the knowledge that you have from all of your previous failures and successes and experiences. So what does the work that you do now look like?
yeah. So now I do a combination of things. I have 2 sides to my business. I have the educational component, what I call the educational component side, which is my membership, the coursework, my one-on-one clients, and I work with them both in terms of their business and in terms of their spiritual life, in terms of connection with the self. And when I say spiritual in this context, talking about self-actualization process. The more you know about who you are in this world, the more and better you're able to serve this world and your people. The more you know you, the more you're able to serve your people.
Mm-hmm.
So I really focus on that in both in terms of business and then in day-to-day life. Don't you want to live a more contented, happy, glorious, joy-filled, blissful existence? If you
Yeah.
do, I mean, maybe. Maybe. No, I'd rather be miserable.
Rather be a curmudgeon.
Well, I do know some of those,
Yes.
especially in the theater.
Oh boy,
Um,
yeah.
anyway, and then that's one side of my business, and the other side is I still content create.
Hmm.
I have 2 documentaries that are both in post production. And I'm working on a one-woman show with somebody, helping her develop it. And I'm writing a book.
So
So
many amazing things.
yeah, so they're all a process, right? Particularly the production side for me, the creation side, they're all at different stages.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I shouldn't say you, the reason that I don't know your business, the reason that I have these 5 different projects is that they're at various stages of development.
Yeah.
And that I've learned too over the course of all of these years and all of these different businesses and all of these different ways of working is that everything has its season. Everything, everything has its
As it's
season.
season.
Everything has its time. Singing Pippin for y'all.
You're welcome, everyone.
Yeah, exactly. You're welcome. For the non-theater geeks, I'm sorry. But it is true that everything comes in cycles and seasons. And so what I like to do is have things at various stages so that when one thing is finishing, another may be beginning. So that what I learned in my previous life and that I've really brought into the business is this cyclical thing, so that things are growing and evolving and then some things are dying out.
Yeah, and I think that's so important because even back, when I was doing theater and doing shows, you go through that phase where you're in a show and there's the excitement and then the show closes and there's just like that lull.
Yeah.
And I love the idea of being able to have different projects and different things at different stages, because then you're always in that place where you can pour yourself into something.
Well, and I'm also a really big fan of having multiple streams of income.
Yes.
There are those out there that say throw all your eggs in one basket, go all in on one thing, and I'm like, that's great, but if that one thing drops, and I think I learned this from my previous life too, if that one thing goes away for whatever reason, is that a business or is that one product thing?
Yeah.
Right.
I say that a lot. Like, is that an income stream that you make through social media? Or like if Instagram goes away?
Yeah. What happens if Instagram goes away and your entire business is on Instagram?
Mm-hmm.
You're in trouble. Yeah. Right. So I'm a big firm believer in multi-streams coming from various directions, and it's served me well over the years. Let's put it that way.
Yes. Yeah.
And as it has you as well. So.
Oh, absolutely. And I mean, I have made those same mistakes though, of, putting my eggs in one basket, or believing that this one thing was going to be the thing that's going to take me to that next level. And it's really powerful to.
So many young entrepreneurs, young artists, young creatives, young soulpreneurs, I call them, that go through that they think that one thing, then I'm going to make it. Like there's this fallacy out there, and it comes from a long-stemmed old story, like the Hollywood overnight sensation success. And what they don't really understand is all the years and all the failures and all the mistakes and all that took to get you there. Yes, there's always that one random person who overnight becomes a success, but most of the overnight successes that you see are years in the making.
Mm-hmm.
And lots of failures in the making.
Oh my gosh, so much.
And lots of, what am I trying to say here? Just lots of hard work.
Yeah.
Lots of effort.
And I think the beautiful thing about that, I'm grateful for coming from the theater world into entrepreneurship, and let me know if you agree, is that from that world, there's just a focus and an emphasis on craft and mastery, and an appreciation for putting in the time behind the scenes before it gets birthed out into the world. There's just like an understanding.
Yeah, I have to actually admit that when I first started in the online space and they're like, just put it out there, I was like, I'm not putting shit out there until it's at a certain level, because it's just the way, because we do have a long history of reverence for the art form, right? And so, and I being an overachieving perfectionist, recovering perfectionist at that I like things to be a certain caliber, a certain way, but I do have to say it's this balance, right? It's this balance of sometimes you just put something out there and see what happens, and then let it grow from there. That's been a great gift of this online space for me. It's just, sometimes you just throw something out and guess what? It may or may not work. But that's been phenomenal. And as much as I love the reverence of the theater and of the craft and of the art form and all of that, I also am kind of digging this, like, let's just see what happens thing.
There's some new levels of play within the let's just see what happens.
Totally. Totally. It's awesome.
Yeah. And it was funny too, because when I was at BBD Live when we met, I was speaking and I had a lot of people come up to me and ask, where'd you get your speaker training? It's like, I didn't. Like, I really didn't. Like, it's literally been years for, 15, 20 years of me behind the scenes taking acting classes. And I realized too, like, I was investing so heavily in myself in the theater realm before being an entrepreneur. It was even on my radar. Like, I was working double shifts, doing all this stuff to be able to afford to go to weekly voice lessons. People are like, voice lessons? What's that? And I'm like, well, you sit for an hour and you get like vocal technique training in the same way that you'd go to a personal trainer, you get that for your voice. Like, I was doing that for over 10 years and, doing all of this stuff. And at the time, it was obviously for the intention of becoming a performer in musical theater. And it's so amazing to me, especially this really clicked for me in 2016 when Facebook came out with live video. And I remember thinking, okay, this is my, expertise sandwich of how it all came together, of this is where I get to perform in a way that feels so much more aligned to me, so much more enjoyable to me, where I'm able to feel like I am serving and being able to deliver at my highest level. And I have to say, being on stage, speaking about business, like, I never felt that comfortable or confident or aligned on stage before in my entire freaking life. It was just like, that was it.
Really funny that you say that, because at that same BBD Live event, I spoke.
Yes, you did.
And I had this realization of very similarly that it was like, whoa, this was all the years in the making for this moment. And all that prep of the voice lessons, of the acting classes, of how to craft a story, of all of it.
Failing at improv classes and having jokes not land and people going rah, rah, and feeling like a complete idiot. And
but then knowing how to shift out of that, right? Very quickly.
Yes.
All of that came into play, and it was a really amazing experience. And talk about like everything coming full circle and into full alignment, right? That's what I witnessed with you. At BBT, I was like, wow, this is like full circle moment here of really owning the stage. You owned that stage.
Thank you.
It was like, get the spotlight, because it was truly like you were in your zone. And I think that because we have so much training, it really, served us both in that sense. But I think for anyone, I think the thing to really remember is that all of these life experiences, we kind of talked about this at the beginning, but all of these life experiences that you have can be utilized to your advantage in your business. It's about tapping into them and accessing them. The stories. There are so many stories to tell from your life. Go create a list. Write 100 stories. And you may say, I don't have 100 stories. You have 100 stories.
You've lived thousands of days. They
You've
don't all
lived,
have to be this
they don't,
Hallmark story.
no, they don't, and they don't have to have, the happy ending either.
Yeah.
In fact, sometimes it's good to not have the happy ending, right? Not every, like, that show that I did, there's a story. Did I learn from it? Absolutely. You
Mm-hmm.
know, does it have the happy ending? No, it's going to in 10 years. That's what I keep saying.
Yes.
So, but even smaller moments in life, when I was a kid, I used to get up and recite nursery rhymes, right? I would hop up onto a chair and recite these nursery rhymes, and it really did set me up for the rest of my life, right? So that full circle moment we were talking about, when I got up on stage, I was jumping on that chair and still reciting those nursery rhymes, right? But the story is that you can use any little piece of your childhood, any little piece of your adulthood, any previous business failure, success, anything, to really inspire, ignite, bring joy to your audience and get them to move, get them into action, get them to make a shift and a change. Because as marketers, as online entrepreneurs, we're change makers. That's what we do. We change people.
Oh, so good. I'm like, mic drop.
Bink.
Think.
Yeah, clink. See, I need a sound effects guy. Or gal.
I'll have Michael, who's editing this, I'll have him add in a nice clink for you, or blink, or whatever. Have him actually drop a mic, and we'll just add that sound effect in. Oh my God, so good. Yeah, I love this conversation. I think this is so powerful, and I really love the idea of inviting some entrepreneurs into the idea of, hey, it might be 90% behind the scenes and 10% is actually like putting out the live video, doing the launch, having the moment on stage. And then for those for the people who are, just trying to throw shit at the wall, like maybe take some time to really hone that craft. And then for the people who are the perfectionists, the call to action for them is like the opposite of, hey, we invite you into playing and exploring and having things not be your version of perfection, because it might just be the thing that somebody needs to hear today.
Yeah, and again, it goes back to you knowing you.
Yep.
What do you really need? And what are you hiding? Where are you hiding?
Oh, that's
right?
The best question ever. That is, yeah, I love that question.
Yeah.
There's always somewhere.
Oh, I know exactly where I'm hiding. I totally have my head in the sand about some tech things in my business.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, oh, I know I need to know that, but I don't really want to know that, but I need to know that. Well, can I hire somebody to do that? That kind of thing.
Yep.
We all have them. We all have them.
And at every next level of life and business and relationship, there's always going to be a place where you can hide just a little bit less.
Yeah. And isn't that ultimately like what it's about? It's about being open and vulnerable and honest and real about exactly who you are. And then honor it. Honor who you are by showing the world, because that is what people want to see. We don't want to see fakeness. We don't want to see perfection. We don't want to see laziness either.
Yeah, we can sniff out the fake.
We can sniff it all out. So bring you.
Yeah. And how beautiful, like imagine if every single person in the world was 1,000% authentically themselves. Like what would the level of freedom and joy be?
Well, there would be no things like wars.
Yeah.
There would be no need. There would be no, the world would be a much calmer, sweeter, happier, kinder, joyous, playful. What were those? What were my core values again? I'm looking up on my board because I have all my core values looking up on my board because I look at them every single day. So I'm like, what are they? That's where the world. That's my vision or view of the world.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right?
And that's what you're showing up and doing and helping to unlock in others. So you're doing that work. So you're amazing. I just loved this conversation so much. I feel like you and I could just jam out for hours.
We could. We could, and maybe get in a little trouble too.
Oh, okay. Next time you're in New York. So funny.
Awesome.
Well, this is amazing. Where can people go to connect with you and learn more about you?
Okay, so across all the platforms, all of them, the, like it's really the, but I sang
the, you know.
The Nick Demos, and that's NICKDEMOS. That sounded like MOUSE. At the Nick Demos on my website, on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube.
I love it.
All the things.
So good. Well, thank you guys so much for being here. Thank you for being here. Thank you guys for listening to this episode. I know that this one was chock full of golden nuggets. So please take a screenshot of the show and tag us over on your Instagram stories at HeyJenCasey and at the THENICKDEMOS. I was like, don't edit you down. Tag us over there and let us know your biggest aha or breakthrough from this conversation. We love to chat with each and every one of you and get to hear like what the impact was, what the breakthrough was. It's so powerful for us to be able to hear that. So we would love to have that conversation with you over on Instagram. So we will see you over there. Until next time. Have a good one, guys. Bye.
Bye.